the playoff changes that we want, that we deserve, that should take place, reportedly aren't going to arrive. Look, JT Wistrcill of Locked On Utes is still here. I lied when I said that he is not sticking around. He is indeed. But Heather Dinich reported on a talk show that there is not an expectation to get the unanimous agreement required to change the playoff format for 2025, which means we get another year of auto buys and auto bids for the 5 highest ranked conference champions, the 4 of whom which get the first round buys, whether that makes sense or not. And then we'll have this weird seeding system and whatnot. I'm disappointed, JT. I am not surprised. I'm not surprised we're not getting that outcome. I guess, though, there is a part of me that's still a little bit put off by the fact that there isn't unanimous agreement that the way that this 12-team playoff was seeded this year is wrong, that it was not the proper way to go about implementing a 12-team playoff. Why do you think there's no unanimous agreement on that?
I think it's pretty simple. Spencer, if you were the commissioner of the Big 12 or the commissioner of the ACC, would you vote to change it knowing you are guaranteed one of the top 4 seeds? Well, you're thinking about it. There's no way. Or Boise.
The ACC did not have one of the top seeds this year. The ACC champion was the last seed.
True.
In the playoff. Though I see your point. I don't know that was typical. I talked about Boise State yesterday on the show. I don't know if they're going to be at the same level. They've lost a few of their top receivers, Ashton Genty, Hassamani, their great defensive line. Like they're going to be at least a mild step back. But that doesn't mean you couldn't have another group of 5 that, notches a big Power 4 win or plays a game that carries them throughout the year like Boise's game against Oregon did. That's not impossible, but
I'll take my chances of that happening rather than if we just do it the other way. I know I'm not going to get one because they're going to throw the SEC or the Big Ten team there. I'm just talking about if I was the commissioner of the Big 12 or the ACC. There's no way I would want to change it right now. Yes, maybe I get more teams in, but they're going to be shoved down the rankings and it's going to be harder for them to make a run. And I think that's why I would still vote no as long as I could and want to probably keep this.
I see where you're coming from with that. And it makes plenty of sense. I just have this perennial Captain America level optimism in me that someone will start governing this sport with the best interests of the fans and the sport in mind. Mm-hmm. We're not getting that for 1 year. Now, these changes could arrive in 2026.
It sounds
according to what Dinich said. But that's honestly more infuriating. They're not committed to this model. They just don't want to change it right now, or they don't feel like they could get the if you want to guarantee that a conference champion gets into the playoff, I actually have no problem with that. I really don't. Because to me, the conference championship games have always been an extension of the regular season, which is what I value above all else, and why I didn't want to expand the playoff, because you minimize, I know you raised the importance of some other games, but you minimize a lot of major games, the conference championship games included. But that's where their priorities are by wanting to keep those auto bids. And at the same time, JT, everybody, including Dan Lanning, if you're being honest about it, would look back and say, should have lost the Big Ten championship game if you were Oregon, and the Ducks season might still be going right. I'm not going to play the hypothetical game, but you can't sit there and tell me that playing SMU at home and then Boise State in a neutral site is tougher opponents-wise than Ohio State on a neutral site with a super long layup. Like, that's what they're intending, is we want to keep the importance of the conference championship games, and yet in the structure you currently have, you just had a prime example where you punished a team for winning one because they had to play a team who you on your own rankings said is a better team than the teams that the loser got to face.
You're absolutely right, and I agree. Like, if it was up to me, I would fix the format, and I would make it be just the 4 best teams get those top seeds and those buys, and maybe even rearrange. This is what we're talking about. Like
16 playoff. Sorry.
Yeah. This is where we want to rearrange it, because what you mentioned too, like Oregon shouldn't have to wait that long to play. I think that much of a layoff is a disadvantage rather than playing some of those other teams that you mentioned. But I, once again, go back to that's what we want to happen. But if I'm Brett Yormark, if I'm Jim Phillips, I want to protect the best interest of my schools. And as soon as we go to 16, that's going to automatically, yes, and Miami would have gotten in this year. But most years, that's going to mean more Big Ten. It's going to be more SEC. And it's also going to make my path, once again, just harder. I won't get a bye. I will have to play earlier. I may even have to go to someone. If I don't get, and if we rearrange it, then they might, first round, they might have to go on the road to someone else's house. So there could be a lot of year where the Big 12 and ACC champion, they have to go to the SEC and the Big 10, and then they're not moving on. So that's, once again, if I was those commissioners, I'd be doing everything I can to honestly try and keep the format as is. I personally, JT Wistrcill, want it to be a fair and equal. The best teams get placed in those spots. But if I was a member of those conferences and looking out for the best interest of my schools, I want this format to stand as long as it can.
Yeah, I think that is likely what it comes down to. If I had the ability to structure it how I see fit, I would make it go something like this, and I want your thoughts.
Okay.
Automatic bids to the 12-team playoff for the conference champions, no automatic seeds, no automatic buys. Those teams that earn the buys based on their ranking by the committee get home playoff games.
I like that.
The home teams went 4-0 in the playoff in this past season, when the first year that they expanded it, and the teams that had an incredibly long layoff went 0-4. That is not a coincidence. Now, there is a factor in there of Arizona State and Boise State were the lowest ranked teams, but they had buys because of the auto bids in there. But that's where I would start. Is, again, I want to incentivize the regular season. I want to incentivize the conference championship games, which is what the television network executives want, which is what conference commissioners want. I think that's what fans should want as well. So give me conference championship weekend, assess everything just as they did this past year. I thought they got it right with the 12 teams they put in, and say, here are the 4 most deserving teams of getting a home playoff game and a first round bye, but don't make those games 3 weeks from the last time everybody played a game. Make it 2 weeks after, or 10 days after, or what have you. That's where I would start with fixing the structure of this 12-team playoff.
I really like it. And once again, I feel like I have to say, like, what's going to end up preventing that idea from happening. There is no way that the teams that the companies that sponsor these bowl games are going to give up those second round games and say, like, no, you can't play them at a home site. I don't see that happening. I think they're going to want it to be the Peach Bowl played where.
How about the first round games are at the bowl games?
It's not as valuable. I mean, they'll still have it.
I think the viewership numbers are still strong, though, and it's still a college football playoff game, and you still have a college football playoff first-round matchup at the Fiesta Bowl, the Orange Bowl, whatever, and it, as always, comes down to who's playing in the game. But that way, you don't disregard those contracts, but you give that home playoff incentive.
I want Ohio, but if I'm those brands, I want Ohio State, I want Oregon, I want Texas, I want Alabama. They're the best teams, and they get a home game instead of playing in my bowl game, where the viewership will be higher, where it generates more eyeballs and views for my company. That's just where I would say no. I like your idea. I think that is absolutely the case. What other format and what other bracket do we have where the best teams are denied a home game? Like, I don't remember that ever being the case, and that's where this is flawed. But there are so much politics going on in college sports right now. I think we even see some of them going on in the NFL with some of the coaching hiring and cycle stuff, like the Dion thing, that it really is unfortunate that stuff gets in the way in what is not just best for the fans, but what is genuinely right, I believe, in the spirit of competition.
JT Wistrcill, Locked On Utes. Double segment today. Enjoyed it as always, my man. I appreciate everyone listening. I will see you next time. And until then, hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.